Hello and greetings, Porter County. Welcome to yet another edition of the PoCo Wellness Hour right here on WVLP 103.1 FM. Your voice for local community radio and your show for community connection, health, and overall well-being. I'm Demetrius Lewis, Communications Manager for the Porter County Health Department. Here on the PoCo Wellness Hour, we like to shine a spotlight on the incredible health initiatives that are shaping our community and the powerful partnerships that make it all possible. From local organizations working to improve public health to the innovative programs led by the Porter County Health Department, this show is your guide to stay informed, inspired, and engaged on your wellness journey. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's conversation about building a healthier Porter County together. Now, today I have a very special guest in studio with me, Melanie Johnsen from Porter Starke Services. Melanie, what's going on today, ma'am?
Hi, trying to stay cool.
A little hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this past week or so, it's just been hard not to melt out there.
Pretty warm outside.
Well, we appreciate your time here on WVLP. Thank you so much for making an appearance. Let's jump right into it, Melanie. Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about where you grew up and how you got on the path to community mental health work.
Sure. Well, I grew up here in Northwest Indiana, so I'm originally from Hobart. I was born in Maryville at Broadway Methodist. And I've lived pretty much in Northwest Indiana the entirety of my life, except for a period of time where I lived in Houston, Texas for about a year toward the beginning of college. And then after I graduated college, I lived in Chicago, downtown, for several years. Moved back locally. I'm an only child. My dad was experiencing some health issues, and I didn't want to be far away. So I think I moved back to the area maybe around 2008.
Okay.
So about 17 years ago.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So, from little old Indiana, and you got a chance to live in the big city of Chicago, downtown, you said.
Yes.
How was that? I'm sure that was quite the culture shock. Huh?
I loved it. I loved being in a big community like that. I loved being downtown. When I was going to graduate school, I bartended at a bar called The Hang Up, which is a local Chicago spot, and it was really cool living there. Before I got into mental health, I went to school I got my bachelor's in criminal justice and then also in psychology. And so there was a period of time where I was toying around with the idea of going to law school. And so my very first job out of college was at a law firm where I was a legal assistant to 3 partners at the law firm that I worked at. And so that's where I worked before I came to Porter Starke. And so it was I learned a lot about how to be professional in that job, and helped me realize that my goal was to maybe not go to law school, but to treat mental health clients, which was my other degree, and I ended up getting my master's in forensics from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. So I graduated from there in 2010, and like I said, I moved back to the area. I knew when I was younger, though, that I wanted to get into some sort of mental health, law enforcement type of combination. I always wanted to be a profiler for the FBI. I didn't quite make that, but which is okay. But I used to love the movie Silence of the Lambs, and I wanted to be Jodie Foster, and I wanted to just figure out all kinds of people. And so I wound up in mental health and doing something a little bit different, but still kind of on that same journey.
So you were pretty inspired. You had quite the imagination as a little girl.
I did. Yeah. Yeah, I took one psychology class and I was just like, wow, this is really great. Kind of maybe helped me figure out some of the stuff I was experiencing or going through, as a teenager. And it just was really fascinating to me, the brain and why we do the things that we do and why people do the things that they do. And so I have loved psychology ever since I was probably in middle school after my first psychology class. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, let's stay on that a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what inspired you to kind of get into the field of behavioral health.
Yeah, like I said, the class, I just really loved it. I thought it was very interesting. The other thing that was a big factor for me, too, is that I do have an aunt that suffers from chronic mental illness. She's doing a whole lot better now. She's actually living back with family in the South in Mississippi, which is where my mom's family is from. And so just seeing her struggles and maybe the gap in services for her. She lived in Illinois for a period of time, and Indiana has a little bit better options for mental health than Illinois does. And she, just seeing her struggles and also the interests that I had just from my own personal, experiences were the things I think that came together that really made me want to help people and get into the field. And so, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you do at Porter Starke Services. How long have you been there? And let's talk a little bit about your role there.
Sure. So next month in August, I'll have been there for 17 years. I began working at Porter Starke Services thinking that I was only going to be there for a year. It was when I was moving back to Indiana from Chicago. I was also going to graduate school. And so at that point in my schooling, I had to do an internship during the day and finish up the rest of my coursework. And I still needed to work full time. So really the only positions that I felt were available to me at that time full time were a midnight job where I would work at night, go to school during the day. And Porter Starke Services had an opening for a psychiatric technician on the inpatient unit that I now run. Mm-hmm. And so I applied for that position and was hired and worked there for about a year while I finished up going to graduate school. And at the time I was doing an internship at the juvenile center in downtown Chicago, and I worked with juvenile sex offenders on their special victims unit, and that was really great. I really enjoyed that. And so I worked with Porter Starke for a year in that capacity, and then I kind of wanted a little bit more, had a little bit more experience, and had a couple little classes that I was trying to finish up for my master's degree after finishing my internship. And so I moved into what was formerly called the Admissions and Emergency Services Department, and I did the job of basically an assessor who would assess clients that are experiencing psychosis or any other kind of mental health emergency, feeling suicidal, homicidal, so wanting to hurt themselves or other people. And so I was an assessor in that role for about 5 years. Then I became the director of that department. I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and then about 6 years ago, then I became the director of all of our acute programming, which is our 16-bed adult inpatient unit that we have here in Valparaiso. And then we recently opened a crisis center in January of 2024, and so then I also oversee that, and then the new client department is also under me as well. So I've grown up professionally at Porter Starke Services, like I said, almost 17 years. Next month it'll be, and just had some really great opportunities and experience there to learn and grow and become a leader in healthcare, in mental health care, and it's been really wonderful.
Isn't it funny how that works? You think you're just going to go somewhere for a little pit stop for a little while, and actually you end up setting up shop and being out for a while.
Yep, I know. I never thought. I remember thinking, this is just this psych tech job, just a stepping stone until I don't have to work midnights anymore. But the culture there and the things that we do for clients and how we care for people just really kind of sucked me in. And then having those additional responsibilities for growth and progressively getting more responsibility and more leadership and stuff is really what made me want to stay at Porter Starke Services. Their mission, but then also what it did for me professionally and personally.
You guys had a chance to grow together, you and your organization.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. So you're from the area, you're from Northwest Indiana. Yep. What do you enjoy most about working and maybe even living in Porter County, with the community?
Sure. I do reside in Valpo, so it's very nice to have a short commute. When I was commuting to Chicago from Valpo, that was pretty wild. But, this is my community. This is where I live with my family. I think that, Valparaiso does really wonderful things. I feel safe here. I feel like there are a lot of opportunities for, just different events that the county puts on and things like that. I just think it's a good place to call home, and I really enjoy that I can give back to my own community with the position that I have and where I live. So it's just really nice to be able to help people that are near and dear to my heart and local to me. So maybe I know somebody that is struggling and they need help with a family member or a loved one, and they could reach out and I could be a resource. So it's nice to be able to be local and be involved in all of the things and live and work in the community. So
that hometown influence.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
So I'm from Northeast Indiana. I'm from Fort Wayne. I have a
Okay.
background in journalism and broadcasting. So
you have a great radio voice.
I appreciate that. So I know a little bit about that, being a hometown kid, so to speak, you know, that person who has resources and is able to come back to where they grew up and kind of make a difference in the community.
Yeah.
So I totally get where you're coming from with that. So you've had a long career here at Porter Starke.
Right.
Can we maybe talk a little bit about, is there a special memory or a moment in your career that has stuck out to you in a meaningful way that has made you say, you know what, I'm glad I'm here and I'm going to be here for the long run?
Oh, absolutely.
Anything you can point out?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a period of time where when I took over all the acute programming, there was a period of time where I kind of feel like around that 5 or 6 year mark in a certain position, I start to want more. I want more opportunity, more responsibility, just maybe something different to engage me and inspire me. And so I had been around 2018, I was getting to the place where I was at about that 5 or 6 year mark as the director of the admissions and emergency services programs. And at that time, I was also a single mom. And so I was kind of thinking like, gosh, I might need to look into the market and, see what might be out there for me. I don't want to leave Porter Starke. I love it there, but maybe maybe there's more. And I did end up getting offered a different position. But when I came to my leadership about that, to the vice president that I worked for at the time, she, personally advocated for me with the CEO. And then that's how I ended up moving into the position where I had all of the acute programs underneath me, and I was given the additional responsibility that I was looking for. I was given the additional resources that I was looking for. And what really stood out to me was the fact that I had made such a difference in the company up until that point that they did what they needed to do to meet the needs that I had at the time. And so it was a really big part of my story and a big reason why I'm hitting, a 17-year mark. So I just think that I had such a wonderful, leadership team that was able to advocate. And I think I see that all the time. And I know that I do that for my employees. So working and being at an organization that prioritizes internal, growth and their people really means a lot to me. So that's one of the biggest things just personally that I can think of that has stood out to me as far as my employment there.
Something like having a good team behind you and surrounding you
Yes.
to help you become a better person. I totally see you right there, man. Let's move on to our next segment. Let's talk a little bit about Porter Starke Services. So for those who may be unfamiliar with what Porter Starke is, can you talk a little bit about the mission and the purpose and what you guys do for the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So Porter Starke Services takes an integrated approach into thinking about mental health care and physical wellness. We really think about the whole individual and really just try to provide whatever we can for the person that's struggling. We know that a lot of times mental illness goes hand in hand with physical health problems, substance use issues as well. And so it's just kind of a whole person approach, and we really look at the individual and not necessarily just their diagnosis or what they're struggling with. And so Porter Starke Services has several locations. We have our main hub, which is here in Valpo. We have satellite offices in Portage and Knox, and all of those locations have all of the services that you would think that we would offer. So, medication management with nurse practitioners and also psychiatrists. We have outpatient therapy, group programming, intensive outpatient treatment, which is for substance abuse. We also have two methadone clinics, one in Valpo here and then one in LaPorte, and that is medication-assisted treatment. So that's a methadone to help people that are struggling with opiate addiction to sort of taper off those substances. And then we also operate a federally qualified health center, so kind of like a similar to HealthLink, if you're familiar with that. And it's called Merrim Health Center. And so we have locations in Gary, Hebron, and in Portage. And so that is a more physical health model. So they can treat, any physical maladies people have, like high blood pressure or, whatever the case may be. So we are offering all of those services to people to help them to, basically live the best life that they can. Another thing that's really important to Porter Starke Services is, diversity, inclusion, and all of those things, and making sure that we are a safe space where anybody can feel welcome to come through the doors. And in fact, the Crisis Center, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, has a no wrong door approach, meaning that we will take anybody at any time with anything going on, and to really know that it's a safe space for anybody who's struggling.
Understood. Some good information right there, ma'am. So how does Porter Starke Services differ from a typical mental health provider or other clinics in the area?
I think probably what sets us apart is that we are really forward moving with some of our community partnerships. For example, we have worked with Northwest Health Porter for many years, decades, and we have had a partnership with them to see their clients at the hospital when they're struggling. A lot of other communities are sort of newly having those kinds of connections with other community partners. We have a really strong relationship with our Porter County judges. Judge Clymer and Judge Fish are incredible. Those are two probate judges that we work with on our emergency detention orders. And both Judge Clymer and Judge Fish are involved with what's called assisted outpatient treatment, or AOT, and they actually meet with some of our more chronically mentally ill clients that are on commitments, and meet with them as just people, not even just as the judge, to just kind of encourage them, hey, you're on this commitment, it's saying that you need to do X, Y, and Z, but this is why it's good for you, and this is why I want to support you. I want to see you get off of this, legal commitment to treatment, and it's just really cool that we have those really great partnerships with the different community members. The other thing that I think we really do good at, and what we've improved on in the last several years, is just our engagement with clients. I think we all maybe are generally aware that there are not enough providers and services for the need that there is for mental health, and so that leads to wait times and people having to wait to get into providers, wait to see a doctor, to start medication. And unfortunately, that's the case anywhere. What Porter Starke does and has tried to do and improve on in the last several years is those touch points with people when they're waiting for their appointments. So, you're not just going to be waiting, however long you have until your appointment, but Melanie's going to call you, every, however long you want me to call you. Every week I'll call you. Every couple of days I'm going to check in. What are your barriers to getting to treatment? How can I assist you? What do you need? What other kind of resources can I provide to you? So we also hire and utilize peers in our different areas of care at Porter Starke. And so a peer is somebody that has lived or living experience with mental health, that have sort of gone through something a client may have gone through in a similar way or maybe in a different way. And they're able to really partner with and walk alongside someone in their journey, and give them support and resources that maybe somebody who's more clinical can't. So I think that we do really well with having peers reaching out and establishing those relationships with clients. The other thing that's really cool is our mobile crisis services. We have people that come out to a person's home if they're struggling, where before you had to call the police or go to the ER or walk into Porter Starke. Now we can come to you and assess you in your home if you need that, and facilitate any kind of treatment you might need from that. So those are some of the things that I think that we're doing. Indiana in general is leaning more toward a CCBHC model of care, which is just an acronym for, kind of an integrated approach to care. And so some of this follow-up is really important with CCBHC, but Porter Starke was kind of ahead of the curve on all of that. And so we were doing a lot of these initiatives before Indiana really even started to become a demonstration state or did a lot of these things. We already had some of these things in our arsenal. So I think we were ahead of the curve in a lot of ways, and that's what sets us apart.
The trendsetters.
Yes.
Set the trend.
Yes.
That's always a good spot to be in, and we see that a lot here in Porter County with all the different programs and initiatives that we have taking place. Let's talk a little bit about whole person care. So I think I got this information from your website, or maybe I was getting it from an article. When I was doing some research on you. So Porter Starke has talked about whole person care. Can you explain what that is and why that matters?
Yeah, and I think it's just what I was mentioning a little bit earlier, that just looking at someone past just what their diagnosis is or what they've been labeled, not looking at any kind of stigma, seeing a person who's coming in, maybe I see you and I see somebody who is having thoughts of harming themselves. Well, you're not just that, right? You're not just a diagnosis of depression. Maybe you're having thoughts of harming yourself because there's other needs that you have that aren't being met. Maybe you are food insecure. Maybe you just lost your apartment and you got evicted, or maybe you're struggling with a chronic pain issue or a chronic physical health issue. And so Porter Starke tries to provide resources and care for everything that might be going on, instead of just focusing on the one thing that maybe even you're asking for help for. We're identifying and trying to help you identify what might be the other sources of that turmoil in your life, and providing you that resource and that care and that support for the other things that you need.
Understood. You guys are doing a lot over there. What's the staff size over there? You guys are doing a whole lot, man.
Yeah, I think our staff numbers are somewhere in the 300s, 350 maybe. Yeah.
It's a big team.
Yes.
That is awesome. Yeah. That is awesome. So do people need to have a referral to access these services, or can they just reach out directly? Can we talk a little bit about that?
So as far as just Porter Starke in general, you do not need a referral to be treated by us on an outpatient care setting. You would just need to call our admissions department, and someone, one of my staff, would register you over the phone, get you scheduled, identified what your needs are, and help you get into contact with those appointments and those resources. As far as the crisis center is concerned, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's a no wrong door facility. So we're open 24/7. You could walk in at any time and say you were struggling and needed help, and we would help you. Even if that meant you didn't necessarily need an assessment for inpatient care, you just needed resources. Okay, great. You need a place to stay for the night. Okay, we've got that too. So really, you can just walk in or call at any time, and we will assist you. The only thing you can't just walk in for is medications. You would definitely have to be scheduled for something like that.
Gotcha.
With an outpatient provider, either a nurse practitioner or a psychiatrist. But as far as coming in, getting started with whatever you need, call anytime, walk in anytime, and we can help you.
Understood. Let's move on to our next segment. Let's talk a little bit about outreach and community engagement, and maybe a day in the life. What's a typical day like for you?
Okay, so I'm the director of all of the acute programming. I think I mentioned that earlier, so if this is duplicative, I'm sorry, but so the 16-bed inpatient unit, the crisis center, which has also 9 stabilization beds, 5 for adult, 4 for children and adolescents, and the new patient department also. So a lot of what I do, I have some really great managers that run the day-to-day operations sort of underneath me, and then what I really do is create the policies, the procedures, making sure that bills are going out, and working at the state level with any kind of initiatives that we might have with the state as far as grants that we've received. And so really just, I always joke when I interview people, I say, Oz behind the curtain. That's kind of like what I do. I'm more of the administrative side of just kind of overseeing and making sure that everything's running the way that it needs to, and then I have some managers that are more, figuring out the day-to-day operations, and then we've got our nurses, our peers, our emergency triage specialists, and several other positions that are sort of more the boots on the ground kind of thing. So, yeah.
But at one point, you were a pair of those boots on the ground.
I was,
you worked
yes.
yourself behind the curtain.
I've been in all of the boots.
Yes.
So,
you've been marching.
Yeah, I've done my time marching, and now it's cool to kind of help. And really, the biggest thing that I would love to do for any employee that I have is to see them have a progression similar to mine, right? And to help them and be that strong healthcare leader for them as I had when I was newer in my career at Porter Starke. So yeah.
So you've had a chance to really start from the bottom and work your way up. So you've had a chance to lay eyes and have experience working on things at all different levels.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how that makes you a better leader? I mean, because you've seen the organization in and out and all around.
Absolutely. I would, if I'm going to toot my own horn, I guess I would say that it does make me a better leader, because when people bring to me concerns or they have trying to troubleshoot solutions or things like that. I've been there. I've experienced that same frustration, or maybe experienced a similar issue. And so not only am I a good resource to validate their concerns and allow them to have that space where they need to say what they need to say in order to move past it, but I also have good solutions. Or maybe I tried this that one time it happened to me 10 years ago, or what if we try this? And I feel like I have the ability to see things a little bit clearer because I have been there. I have done that role. Obviously, roles have changed and expectations have changed over the 17 years that I've been there, but it really allows me the chance to understand where a staff member has been, and be able to guide them in a way that is helpful because I've been in their shoes or in their boots.
Absolutely, yeah, boots.
Yeah,
boots.
right.
Do you guys have interns?
We do, yeah. We definitely have interns. A lot of times they work with. I've actually personally had an intern a couple of times, a healthcare leadership intern, which has been really cool. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's another thing I didn't mention earlier. A lot of my job is data and statistics, and who are we serving, and are we making decisions about our programming that's based on the data? So anyway, not to go back to that, but. Mm-hmm. So yes, we have had interns. I've had healthcare leadership intern. We also have interns that come and do things like we have a challenge course, which is more experiential therapy kind of thing, where they go out and they do all these different challenges out in a physical environment to kind of mirror what life is really like, and the expectations that are placed on you and the way that you have to think in your everyday life. You go out to this challenge course and you solve problems out there, right? And a lot of our interns work there. A lot of our interns work in the outpatient therapy department, seeing clients and learning how to do that. And so, yeah, we have had a lot of interns. We typically don't take interns in our more acute programming as far as, physically being on site with the expectation of nursing. We have had a long partnership with Valparaiso University, and we do have nursing students that come and do rotations on our floor and learn about psych nursing with us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we have those interns and they come in. So let's talk a little bit about potential interns. Maybe those people who are in high school right now, maybe they are studying in college.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people who may want to follow a similar path like you did? What would you say to them to encourage them if they want to pursue a career in healthcare, or more on the mental health side?
Yeah, I think we need a lot more mental health care providers. We need more therapists. We need more psychiatric nurses. We need all of it. I think that maybe sometimes mental health or psychiatry is it's a more acute kind of setting and maybe not paid as well as traditional other healthcare settings, but the rewards are so much. I think, even at our hospital, if you're a psychiatric RN, you get to see a patient for 3 to 7 days and really learn about them. You get a lot of one-to-one contact with them. Whereas, like, if you're a nurse on a medical floor, you're just running around, taking care of patients, changing IVs, doing this, that, the other. With the psychiatric nursing, it's more of a conversational, one-on-one kind of relationship you get to have with your clients. And but yeah, as far as anybody interested in following a similar career path or coming to work at Porter Starke Services, you could always call our HR department. We have job postings all over the place. We have the intern positions are posted, and just reach out. And if you see us at a fair, come ask, and don't be afraid. I think a lot of times people think, mental health's kind of like the movies that they see, Girl Interrupted or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, depending on which generation you're from, right? And it's not like that at all. It's in fact, it's nothing to be afraid of. And in fact, our clients are more likely to be victimized than they are to be, perpetrators of any kind of scary stuff. So it's just a really rewarding career. And if you're thinking about it or you care about people and you want to make a difference, it's a good place to do that.
Understood. Let's talk a little bit about, you kind of touched on this, let's talk a little bit about that, the stigma of mental health. I've been at the health department for 2 years now, so I've kind of come in on the tail end. I used to work in broadcast media, so I've covered this stuff just a little bit, but I feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like over the past decade or so, there's been a big shift in the way that we we approach and we attack mental health as far as helping people. Can we talk a little bit about that? Kind of like you said, there used to be the whole stigma and the whole stereotype of like the scary place. Kind of like what you mentioned. I think of like Batman, Gotham City, Asylum and all that, where all the bad people go, and that's not it at all.
No, I think COVID had a big impact on the change in stigma as well. I think the stigma is still there. It's I don't think it's completely gone. I do think that you're right. There's been significant strides in the way that we view mental health in the last decade or so, and I think COVID had a big part to play in that, in the fact that we were having a collective trauma at that time as a nation, as the human species. We were all being forced to live in this world where we didn't understand what was going on. We couldn't be social. We were quarantined to our homes. We were living in a completely brand new way, and we were all scared, right? And we were all lonely. And so, and we were navigating something together as a human race. And so I think that COVID really helped people to realize that those kind of feelings that you have of loneliness, despair, struggling, they're not necessarily bad or make you bad or anything stigma related, that they make you human and they make you part of what everybody struggles with. And so, there's been other things I think that have helped. There's courses, mental health first aid, which is being really pushed, like different celebrities and people have backed that, like Lady Gaga and things like that, and maybe some different kind of shows that are more depicting, hopefully not sensationalizing this kind of stuff, but maybe more depicting what people struggle with. And so I think that more exposure is good. I think that collective trauma we all went through with COVID, and then I think just the initiatives and the push that of people that do recognize that we all struggle, we all have challenges, and just, for example, for me, 17 years I've been in a leadership position. That doesn't mean there haven't been days where maybe it was a struggle to go to work or to do the types of things I needed to do because I was going through something. Everyone has their things. Everybody comes in with their own baggage, and the more that we can understand and realize that, the better off we'll be, and then kinder we'll be to each other. So those are some of the things that I think have impacted that, but COVID for sure.
So you believe the stigma is still around, there's still a little bit of a residue, but we are turned in the right direction. We are headed the right way.
I think we're definitely headed in the right direction. Awesome. I think we have more work to do, but we're headed in the right direction.
We just got to stay on it, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do you, and this may be, we might be beating a dead horse with this next question, but what do you feel is the biggest challenge when it comes to getting people to talk about or even seek help for mental health concerns? Is it that stigma? Is it that embarrassment that people might feel? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think stigma, absolutely. I think culture plays into it too. Certain cultures don't believe that mental illness is a thing, or they don't think that you should talk about your problems outside your family system. So stigma is a big one. Culture is a big one. I think that also, I think embarrassment, fear, all of those things lead into stigma, and just we are all so worried about what other people think of us, right? Even when it comes to social media, we're such curated images anymore. So we're thinking we only want people to see the part that's good, but what makes us human is our struggles, and what makes you connected and able to be you is your vulnerability. And so I think that people are fearful to be vulnerable because they think it paints them in a bad light or it makes them look a certain way. And I think if you can get over those kinds of things, I think sometimes people also think that they're not going to get any help if they reach out for it. So I think that access and logistics are kind of an issue of that too. Like maybe where you live, are there any, resources available to you? Do you feel like when you've reached out for help that people cared about you? And so I think that sometimes too, people in the healthcare field can sort of get compassion fatigue, where they start to care less because they see so much all the time. And so it really boils down to what has a person's interactions been with people when they tell them they're struggling. Have they been positive? Have they been helped? Or have they been brushed aside? And so I think those are some of the things that might impact whether somebody reaches out for help or not. But when I think about culture, so I was raised by a single father. And when I think about when I was younger, my mom wasn't around, and, you know, being a teenager is hard in general. And, you know, I maybe struggled with some, you know, feelings around that because my mom wasn't around, and all of that, and self-worth and all. And so I would say I struggled with some depression and anxiety, something that, you know, I think we all have sort of a little bit level of, depending on where we're at in our lives. And I remember approaching my dad at the time when I was a teenager and saying, I really think I need to get on some medication, or I need some help, and I'm really sad and I'm struggling. And I remember his response always was, I think he thought it was helpful, but it wasn't. It would be like, crying doesn't get you anything but a wet face. Or he'd be kind of like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, you've got this and this and this going on for you, and you shouldn't be sad. Well, that's not the kind of response somebody needs when they're struggling, right? They need to know that sometimes all of those things could be going great, but you still feel bad on the inside. So I think a lot of it has to do with culture, family dynamics, and then also just the way that when you first reach out for help initially, what kind of response are you getting back? And is it validating and encouraging, or is it kind of like, oh, I just got shut down, so maybe I shouldn't do this. So
that old mindset of just rub some dirt on a kid and get back out there.
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying with the culture. You know, if we're sick, we're encouraged to go to our family doctor. If we break something or we get severely injured, we're encouraged to go to the ER or the clinic. When we're feeling like we have mental issues, there's not really that big push to say, hey, bud, maybe you need some help with that. Maybe we need to get you somewhere, get you to talk to somebody. Yeah. Maybe that is on the other side of things where it's changing, but it's not quite like, you know, kind of like what I said, when you're sick, it's just kind of like knowing that you do these things. So hopefully with programs like what we're doing and us talking, getting the word out there, we can encourage this message to keep going like such.
I think it boils down to education too. I think a lot of people are afraid of what they don't know and they don't understand. So if you've never had any exposure to mental health challenges, or somebody who's struggling with substance use or mental illness, you don't know what to expect or how to react. And when you don't have the education or the knowledge, you're afraid. And that's okay. But I think as long as people have an open mind and they want to educate themselves, then I think that will help with stigma as well.
Absolutely. We got to keep fighting for this message.
Yes.
So are there any specific programs or events that are coming up that our listeners should know about that's going on with Porter Starke? Anything you want to plug, ma'am?
Yeah. Now this is probably where my outreach counterpart would have been better to answer this question, but we do an Out of Darkness walk. We are a I don't know how to what this word is, but we participate in it. We don't organize it, but it's a community thing. It usually happens in Chesterton, and so that's usually every year in very early fall, late summer, so like September. And it's a really great event. It just celebrates people that are living and survivors from family members or friends who have completed suicide, and so that's something that we always participate in. And to be perfectly honest, Porter Starke has a bunch of things that they are engaged in and involved in, at which level I don't really know a ton about, so I apologize for that. But
and of course we can go to your website with all this information.
Thank you.
And there's an event section, I assume, where we can get all this information.
We can definitely get you some information on
Absolutely. You guys have a lot going on. That's a lot for you to remember. There's a lot going on with you guys. Let's move on to our next segment. Let's talk a little bit about mental health in everyday life. So what are some simple ways that people can take steps to kind of take care of their mental health on a daily basis, and maybe not let it all pile up on what I'm trying to say is maybe not let it all pile up and kind of deal with it on a daily basis.
I think mindfulness and self-awareness, recognizing what your own triggers are, and when you're sort of getting into a space where you're not feeling well and not doing well, and being able to stop that before it turns. And so I think doing anything that is important to you that provides self-care. I mean, I am a mom of 2 children. I have 2 fur babies as well. And so so sometimes moms are especially good at this, is like caring for everybody else instead of caring for themselves. And so one big way I think that you can protect yourself and help yourself is to make sure that you're taking the time to do the things that you enjoy, doing your self-care, getting out in nature, eating right when you can, exercising, sleep's a big one, and really just asking for help when you need it.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about this just a few minutes ago. There are some people out there, maybe there are some who are listening right now, who know that there's something that's not right, but they don't feel like they have someone that they can turn to or somewhere that they can turn to. How can friends and family support someone who may be struggling emotionally or mentally, even if they don't have that education that we were talking about?
Yeah, I think just validating feelings. A lot of the times, again, when you're scared or you don't understand, you might be more dismissive to that person who's struggling, and not maybe recognizing or understanding what they're going through, and just realizing that every person has sort of their own journey, and anything that they're experiencing is real to them. Even if you don't understand it, or maybe it's not a way you would react to a situation, however that person reacts or feels to a situation is what's true and their truth to them. And so I think just being supportive and compassionate is the best way that you can, engage with those loved ones that are struggling. And then, calling Porter Starke Services. And if you have questions about what kind of resources we can offer, like, hey, I don't know how to engage in this conversation with my teen. They are struggling with this. We might be able to say, hey, I got a great resource list for you, and these are options that you can give to your child, and these are some groups that we have that they might be beneficial from, or here's some other mental health organizations in the area that maybe might, have had really good reviews or something like that, or we work with. And so I think that knowing that Porter Starke is here as a resource, because, like, for example, I don't think a lot of people in the community know that we operate an inpatient mental health hospital here in Valpo, or even Porter County for that matter. You probably wouldn't know that unless you had a loved one that was struggling, or yourself with a mental health challenge or crisis. And so calling Porter Starke if you need them, and then just being compassionate, active listening. Don't be on your phone, be there, be present with the person, and realizing that whatever they're experiencing is what's true to them, and trying to support them the best you can.
Absolutely. That's good stuff right there. So I understand, a lot of people may react differently to different situations, but are there any signs that might indicate that someone should reach out for professional help?
Oh, absolutely. I think any kind of change in normal behavior that you notice, or maybe if somebody is always well put together, and then maybe they're starting to be a little bit more careless about the way that they look or the way they present themselves. I think if somebody is complaining of physical maladies a lot, that's another indicator that something else might be going on. I think that if you notice a pattern that's different than they normally would present with, like maybe I'm always historically on time and then I start showing up late, or maybe I'm sleeping more often than I normally do, or I'm more irritable, I'm angry at you for no reason. Another thing that you might notice is withdrawal. Somebody who's maybe not answering as much, or not wanting to come out and have dinner or whatnot. Those are just some kind of things that you could see as kind of signs and symptoms of things that somebody might be struggling.
Gotcha. So can we talk a little bit about some of the barriers that people might face when trying to access mental health, and how Porter Starke is working to kind of reduce that? Are there any barriers?
Yeah, absolutely there are. So we mentioned a couple of them throughout the conversation, just throughout the course of answering other questions. But, transportation, access to services, whether locally in where you live, are there community mental health centers? Are there therapists or psychiatrists available for you? Another thing that is a barrier is, I don't know if I mentioned this, but just transportation, getting to and from places, being able to get in for an appointment. A lot of times what happens is if you have to wait for a provider, your crisis is sort of over by the time, I can see you in 3 weeks. Well, I feel better now, I don't need to go. And
Right.
That's not necessarily true. Like, if you were struggling, maybe you should still go to that appointment, even though you're not struggling now, because it might be something that will help you manage those kinds of feelings if they arise again. And so I think those are some big barriers. There's just not enough providers for the need that's there. And that's what drives up access to care and wait times and things like that.
Yeah.
So those are barriers for sure.
Absolutely. And those are the things that we're working to try to get rid of, or at least reduce as much as possible.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about this earlier, but just one more time. What would you say to someone who's nervous about asking for help, seeking that help, whether it's from your organization, a family member, a friend, what would you say to encourage someone who has that need and they know they have that need?
I would say that don't assume that every interaction that you have is not going to be favorable. Even if it was the first one, your dad said, don't stop crying, you're just getting a wet face. Not everybody's going to say that to you. Somebody is going to hear you and they're going to understand. And to always, be strong and fearless when it comes to advocating for yourself and for what you need. And so if you have to be the loudest voice in the room for you and what you need, then continue to do that, because somebody is going to listen to you and somebody's going to care, even if other people haven't before.
There's nothing wrong with asking for help.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, we're encouraging it.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit more about how people can get in touch with Porter Starke if they need support. We have the website, they can call you guys. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our general number just for Porter Starke is 219-531-3500. And so call that line and you will get to anywhere in the organization that you need to go. We also have a crisis line that is operated and manned 24/7 by trained people in crisis, and that number is 219-476-4523. And so either of those numbers are going to get you directly to where you go. Website is good, but calling those numbers directly will be able to assist you 24 hours a day.
Oh, 24 hours a day. There you go.
Yeah.
Are services available for people without insurance or people who may be concerned about cost effectiveness?
Yes, so we do offer services to people that do not have insurance. All of our admission staff, one of the departments that I supervise, are licensed Indiana navigators, which means that we can apply for Medicaid for you and work on the marketplace to get you some coverage. We can also do what's called presumptive eligibility for you, which basically, if you meet certain criteria, will presume that you're eligible for Medicaid and get you coverage that same day. And it'll cover you for essentially the entire month that you're in that you apply, and then the additional month after that. And then we can help you apply for Medicaid, turn in all of those papers, and hopefully get some coverage turned on for you. For those people who truly don't maybe qualify for Medicaid or can't get it, we also do offer a sliding scale fee. So if you meet different income requirements, it'll determine what type of a discount you get, and then we'll provide care. Crisis services are free of charge. We, in the moment, we don't charge you for anything. You may be billed later for that, but you could walk into our crisis center with nothing, and you will be seen and given what you need. But outpatient programming will help you get insurance if we can, and if we can't, then we'll offer you a sliding scale.
Can you talk a little bit about that crisis center? What takes place there?
Yeah, so the crisis center opened in January of 2024, so we're about a year and a half in.
Congratulations.
And actually, the crisis center opened just a few weeks before I had my second baby, so that was interesting to open a completely new 24/7 program. Right around that same time as having a newborn. But at any rate, it helps me to remember how old the crisis center is, because I'll never forget, because it's about the same. Both of my babies are about the same age, right? My crisis center baby and my son baby. But so we opened, and we basically received money from the state of Indiana to operate a crisis center stabilization unit, and it's basically a place to go. So if you are struggling, like I mentioned earlier, it's a no wrong door facility, and you can come in at any time, get resources. You can stay in a stabilization room up to 24 hours if you needed to. Maybe you're in a domestic situation, or you're feeling hopeless, helpless, but you're not quite at a place where you need to go inpatient, but you want to be out of your environment for a little bit, or you want somebody to observe you and make sure you don't do anything you shouldn't be doing to harm yourself or anybody else for up to 24 hours, we can keep you there. It's an outpatient level of care, so you have to be agreeable to staying and it's voluntary. You can't commit you to anything like that. So
Gotcha.
it's a voluntary level of care that we can just help kind of remove you from your environment for a little bit if you need to, and continue to assess you. So if you get to a point where you start feeling better and outpatient services are better for you, then great. If things start to escalate for you and you're starting to feel worse, then we can walk you right down the hall to our inpatient unit, as long as you're 18 and over. And if you're not, we can facilitate placement for you. But so those are the stabilization area that we have, but basically it functions as a place where you can come in if you're struggling, you'll get assessed, get resources, and we will make recommendations for you based on what you come in with. So we'll do an assessment, we'll determine, outpatient is better for you, we can just set you up with a doctor or a therapist, or maybe you're feeling very bad and you need an inpatient level of care, and then we can admit you to our inpatient hospital, or like I mentioned, facilitate you to another placement if we need to do that. Or maybe you're sort of in that middle stage between the two, and you could benefit from some stabilization. So
Gotcha.
Yep.
I appreciate that education, ma'am.
Sure.
So for the listeners out there, what is the first steps that someone should take if they want to get involved with a support group, therapy, or even community outreach with the organization?
Yeah, I really think just calling Porter Starke is what's going to get you started. So you're going to get everyone that comes through our agency doors, if they're they're not in crisis and they're just calling because they need some support, some outpatient help, they're going to get funneled through the admissions department, which is going to do an assessment, get some information about what you're struggling with, what you're looking for, and then based on that information that you provide to them, they're going to match you up with a provider and services and resources for what you might need. And then on the more crisis side of things, if you just walk in or call the crisis center, we're going to help you manage that crisis and get you where you need to go and help walk you through that.
Gotcha. Are you currently looking for volunteers or community partners to expand outreach efforts? Are you guys looking for any?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always open to new partnerships, and would love to have new people in our corner, and people that are interested in what we do and would want to work with us to that end. And we also have lots of positions open. So we, like I said, we created this whole brand new crisis center. We're doing all kinds of stuff with outreach, and those take people to do those jobs. So we definitely have a need for more employees as well. So if people are interested in mental health care and they want a good place to work, I would say that 17 years in, it's been a good place to work. So and psychiatric nurses, we really need nurses. So if you are in the market for any of those types of positions or jobs, we got you if you want to come in, and don't be scared.
You heard it right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are getting close on our time here on the PoCo Wellness Hour on WVLP 103.1. But, Melanie, we've talked about a lot of serious things here. We've given a lot of good information to the people, a lot of educational topics. I feel like we may have inspired some people who may be going through something to reach out. So we talked about a lot of heavy stuff. So I'd like to end the show on a much lighter note. You've mentioned the fact that you're a mom, and I'd like to ask you a couple of questions with your experience as a mom. Some of these questions may help you a little bit.
Okay.
But let's end the show on a lighter note, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So some of these questions are like the things that keep me up at night. Just to let you in my brain a little bit.
All right.
So I gotta ask you. This is perfect for you for being a mom. So, who would win in a dance-off? The penguin from Happy Feet?
Okay.
Or one of the minions?
Oh, Minion.
Really?
I say Minion.
Is that just because that's your favorite movie?
Maybe. Or maybe I'm more familiar with Minions, but I just feel like they're, wily little creatures that find solutions to things. So even if they weren't necessarily the best dancer, I feel like they would come up with some sort of way to win the competition through nefarious reasons, or I don't know, but I feel like they would.
Evil reasons.
Yes, yeah, they would get some help from Gru.
Yeah, I forgot his name. Gru, gotcha.
Yeah.
I feel like the Happy Feet penguin. I feel like he's a better dancer.
Probably.
But I feel like the minions throw a better party.
Yeah, and they're resourceful, so I feel like there are a lot of them, so maybe collectively they would be more entertaining to watch. Maybe that's what I think.
And they don't hang out in Antarctica. So
Exactly.
we can hang out somewhere where it's warm.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, speaking of somewhere warm, let's see where you go with this.
Okay.
If you could teleport to one place in the world for one day, where would that be? Just to get away from work, get away from Porter County.
I would say I would teleport to Greece. I took a vacation there when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and it was an incredible experience. And I don't know if you ever feel this way, but sometimes I wish some of the places I traveled or the experiences that I had when I was maybe younger that I could re-experience more as an adult. And so I just think that country is beautiful, and it's just amazing and warm, and lots of water and sand and just beautiful architecture and buildings around you. So send me there with no kids, no husband, no dogs. Just me.
This is just you.
Okay,
You're teleporting by yourself.
I'm gonna teleport to the beach.
Just for a day. That'll be all right.
Teleport to the beach.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I think Greece would be really cool. Having the name Demetrius, I think I would like to go over there just to see how many people I could meet with that same name.
Yes.
Because it's very rare over here. So, what is your go-to comfort food after a long day of working out in the community?
Oh, man. I love French fries. I know that's not very inspired, but I love French fries.
That's probably my favorite thing. I got the Porter County Fair. Get the big bucket of crispy French fries.
Yeah, those ribbon fries.
You know.
Yep.
You get it.
Yep. Anything potato, like, chips I love, French fries I love. So any fried potato is right up my alley.
You like the crunchiness.
Yes.
Totally get you. So what's a song that always uplifts your mood?
Oh gosh. There's lots. There's lots of songs. I know I probably don't look like it, but I actually really like metal music.
Oh wow!
But I like all kinds of music. I love like country. I love pop music. I love everything. And so, I'm just thinking because I recently went to Nashville. And I went there for work. I'm a CPI instructor, which is nonviolent crisis intervention. It was a biannual conference that they do, or 2 years. I don't know if that's the right word, biannual. But so anyway, we went to Nashville, and I don't know if you've ever been there, but you basically pay like $20 to pick from a song list, and then the live band will play it when you're at a bar. And so somebody had chosen Enter Sandman by Metallica, and I was so excited. And my coworkers always laugh at me because it's just not, it doesn't jive with appearance versus and so I'm like just yelling and jumping up and down and just having a great time because they were playing Metallica, and I was really excited. So I don't know if that's the one song that always like amps me up, but I just think it's a song that I can think of recently that amped me up and made me really excited that they were playing it.
I really can't see you getting down in the mosh pit like that, getting thrown around.
No, not really.
Does Ozzy Osbourne, does he count as that?
He just died.
Yeah, he just passed away. Does
and
he
Hulk
count?
Hogan died. Did you see that?
What are you going to do, brother?
I know.
That is, they're just kind of dropping like flies this past week or so. Like
makes you feel old.
Unfortunately. Last question. We got a few minutes here. So what is your favorite thing about Porter County in general? Whether it's working, living, anything.
I just, I think it's a beautiful, safe, welcoming community. That's what I love about Porter County. I think, I think there's a lot of things to do with your family here, a lot of events, and whenever I'm out, I feel that sense of community, small town, but also close to Chicago, and really great restaurants, really great just events, and all the things that they do in the summer. I just really like the community, the small town feel, but they make it fun and not old timey.
We're all about our festivals.
Yes, exactly.
Can't wait for popcorn.
Yes, exactly.
Coming on up.
Yep. It's a good place to raise a family, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Melanie, thank you so much for your time today. I really want to thank you for your time. I know you're a busy individual. You're doing a lot with Porter Starke. Thank you so much for giving your time to WVLP 103.1 this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we hope that this conversation has left you feeling inspired and engaged today. So remember, a healthy community starts with each and every one of us. For more information on upcoming events and programs and initiatives that we discussed today and so much more, please visit us on our website websites. You can find us on the Porter County government website at www.portercountyin.gov, or go straight to our health department website, which is www.in.gov/local health/Porter County. And you can find us on social media. You can find us on x.com/county_Porter. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Porter County Health DEPT, and you can find us on Instagram, Porter_County HD. This is Demetrius Lewis, Communications Manager for the Porter County Health Department, signing off. And I want to thank you for listening in on this episode of the PoCo Wellness Hour right here on WVLP 103.1 FM, your show for health, community connection, and overall well-being. Have a healthy and safe week, Porter County. Peace.